John, what are you educated in, and what degrees do you have, and how high up the scale in your particular field did you go?
I sell propane and propane accessories.
If I can understand this, then there's no reason anybody else can't understand it. So I don't believe that nonsense.
Why are you putting yourself down? Why would it imply that you shouldn't get it?
Well, just that I never graduated high school. I never went to college. You understand? I don't have the education you have, but I understand this.
That's
I'm
because
not putting myself down.
Yeah, just because you didn't graduate high school doesn't make you stupid. You're not stupid. That much is self-evident, Neil.
Oh, I didn't say I was stupid. I'm just saying, if I can understand this, then anybody can. Come on.
Yeah, but it's the self-deprecating tone I can sense in it, and you even backed it up immediately without even hesitating, which you say, well, I didn't go to high school. So in some way, you're inferring that you're of lower intelligence, and you're not. My point is that stupid people might not get it, but you're not amongst them to say, well, if somebody who didn't graduate high school, there's plenty of people who didn't graduate high school that are extremely intelligent, and there's plenty of people who did that aren't. So it's not comparable.
Neil, there's some people who went to school in different levels, and then after, where most people quit school and get a job and do things, they went and got masters and PhDs and all these things. And these people are saying that the curved line is straight. So you are smart.
Oh, I don't know if anyone saw my video about what is hi-fi, but in that video I plugged a guy called Robot Underground, and he's got all sorts of views on every single subject. He's not just hi-fi. It's one of the reasons I like him. He's got a lot of opinions on everything. But he was talking about the education system, and he made a comparison that I'd never thought about, which I thought was genius. He compared it to a pyramid scheme. Now imagine if you know the structure of what a pyramid scheme is, right? When you get to the top in education, there's no payoff, right? So in a pyramid scheme, you go into it with the investment and you hope that eventually there'll be some payoff at the end, right? There's always the talk of a guaranteed payoff at the end of the pyramid scheme, right? But everybody above the top 2 or 3 people all get screwed and left with nothing. Well, what happens when you go through the education system? Well, you've got to go through this to get a really good job at the end. So the inference is that the payoff at the end is a guaranteed really good job, right? Is that at the end of that pyramid scheme? Is that actually a real thing that they actually offer? It doesn't exist at the end of the system, does it? So it's a pyramid scheme.
Let me explain a little better. Let's put it this way. I sucked in trigonometry. I was in 9th year of mathematics for 3 years straight. Sine, cosine, tangent. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't grasp it. The teacher even put me in a seat next to my girlfriend, and I couldn't get it. So there you go.
Neil, I didn't even learn any of that. Do you know what my education is?
He was a poor Irish farmer bringing up potatoes.
Do you know what age I was when I left school?
You were 3.5, straight down the coal mine, weren't you, Brian?
No. I was 15, and I would have left it earlier if I legally could have. And the teachers would have left me. I didn't know anything about geometry or anything about anything else. So education is not, I mean, there's plenty of educated people I've dealt with in the past 7 years that have gotten things wrong with just a little bit of research and understanding. I've disproven them. I mean, education, I'm not putting it down, it does have its purposes, but just because someone has education doesn't mean that they have understanding.
Exactly. You should have.
I understand that. I got all my education here on this show.
Neil, just pay more attention. You should have used Brian as an example. I completely agree, Brian. You should have said something along the lines of, if Brian can get it, then anybody can.
Yeah, he's an idiot from Ireland.
No, but I always say, listen, I got all my education on this, right on this show. When I found this show, just listening to it, the repetitive nature of it, it just gets in the brain.
You had no need to understand trig, neither did I. Now, while I might have done well in my maths GCSEs, it doesn't mean that any of it stuck with me or had any practical application after the fact. So most of it just gets forgotten about until you have some practical need for it. So an understanding is only acquired because it's required. In this instance, understanding how an elevation angle measurement's taken. So on screen now, you've got the acquisition of an elevation angle measurement off a flat plane. Well, understanding how triangles are utilised within it, you don't even have to know the terminology. I don't. Obviously, I was calling it basic trig earlier. So do I know does it matter that I don't know the terminology? No. But now it breaks down when you're actually measuring something off a plane. And that's all that's relevant to my argument. Understanding the intricacies of the maths isn't needed. Don't need to know any of that.
Let me comment on this. Well, go on, John. I'll do it after you.
I was going to say, and sometimes education can be detrimental in this subject. I heard it said on, I think it was a movie, that it's harder to fill a cup that's already full. Some people already have their preconceived notions, and it's a lot harder to get across, if they've been educated to believe it's a sphere.
You know who else said that?
illustration.
You know who else said that? Quantum Eraser said almost exactly that verbatim to me. So I was like, when he was taking quite a considerable amount of time out of his own life to educate some Dumbo, that would be me. I'm like, why are you taking all this time out of, why aren't you picking somebody that's got a better education standard? I'm nobody. I've got no standard of education at all. Why invest all this time? He's like, because you're a blank canvas. Because you haven't been polluted with all the nonsense of higher education to believe that science is actually pseudoscience. It's easier to train you in this than it would be to train somebody who's had their cup filled, as you put it.
Let me go to what I was going to say, and I need John's involvement here. John, what are you educated in, and what degrees do you have, and how high up the scale in your particular field did you go?
I sell propane and propane accessories.
I wasn't expecting that, but that was good.
I have dual bachelors in electrical engineering and mechanical engineering. I'm a EPRI certified instrumentation technician. And
Kimbo.
That there was a lot of long words, son.
Hang on. I got a point to make. So go on, John, finish up if you haven't already.
He's got more?
Well, I don't know.
well, I was going to say, I'm a field engineer, but that.
Okay, that's good enough. Now, I'm none of those things. And yet John and I agree on what an elevation angle is. John and I agree on what the celestial sphere argument that he just put out with 2 sentences and destroyed the globe light, that all these other people who went through all the academics are told is true. And yet here's John with degrees, bachelor's, and an engineer. My mind doesn't even work that way. And yet he and I, through our own research and development, agree. Now, we're going to get people on the other side that come and say, well, I've got 40 years in this field, or I've got 30 years in this field. Well, yeah, but what information have you allowed to come in, and have you vetted it out, and is it true? So it doesn't matter, Neil, who's educated, who's not. It's who's speaking the truth when it comes time to actually find out.
So the 40-year guys, their cup is full. They can't get nothing else in there. That's what you're saying?
Well,
No.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the 40-year-old guy can, if he wishes to, but doesn't because of bias and because of whatever. And these are the people that become the anti-flat earthers. And
No, not true either.
But let me finish. There are people who will come to flat earth with the highest education that haven't even come yet, because what we're doing is going to get them there. Then there are people with the same amount that won't. What differentiates the two? The desire for truth. That's what it does. The desire for truth, to give up.
I think it's pride.
I was just going to say, to give up the pride.
So it's true to say you can't have gas pressure in the midst of a vacuum without a solid container?
Yes. So yes, you're right. So if you have gas, it would expand into the vacuum, absolutely.
So do you know of any demonstrations of gas pressure in the middle of a vacuum without a solid barrier between the two?
No. The fact that planets move around, lots of evidence.
So I meant experimental evidence. So
That's experimental.
what's the independent variable in that experiment?
Okay, I mean, you can drop things in the vacuum.
Talking about an ideal gas expanding against a vacuum.
A vacuum means there's a zero medium, so everything's
You can
equally more dense.
drop
Talking about an ideal gas expanding against a vacuum.
You just take a room, evacuate the air, and drop things, and then they all fall the same.
Gas expanding against a vacuum.
Is that demonstrable in any way?
I'm not sure.
Let's say if I pressurize shoebox inside of a vacuum, I poke a hole inside that shoebox. Is there any way to demonstrate air not going into the vacuum and staying inside the box?
I don't think so. As you said, I think you're absolutely right. If you poke a hole, it will go out. I know. I
The
can't.
second law of thermodynamics stipulates that you can't have a gas pressure system in the midst of a vacuum. Like a high pressure always goes to low pressure.
Yes, that's true. So it has pressure, and it just
goes out into the vacuum.
Yeah, I think, people that first encounter flat Earth, they all say, well, I once believed that it was a stupid idea, but I tried to refute it and I couldn't. Well, that's because you didn't go to the right sources. You went on the internet and you heard these arguments from flat Earthers that you couldn't answer.
Yeah.
That's because you didn't know the answers. I know the answers. I haven't encountered an argument yet I couldn't refute.
So how do you have gas pressure without a container? Nothing? Danny Faulkner, PhD astrophysicist.
because
Why doesn't Earth's gravity hold the air inside of the shoebox, which is in the midst of a vacuum?
because the gas has pressure. So it has pressure, and it just
goes out into the vacuum.
Sorry, I need to go.
Got it. All right.
And with that, I'm going to say, if you're watching this on an after show, it's time we bid you farewell too. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live and after show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.